Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the final of the third annual Graduate College 3MT competition. We are really glad that so many people are here in person, and we also want to welcome everyone who might be watching over the internet. This event is one of the highlights I have as Dean of the Graduate College. My name is Bill Graves, and it's a real pleasure to host this event because, among other things, it helps our students enhance their communication skills, and it also is an opportunity to show off the great research that our students and faculty are doing here at Iowa State University. For those of you who are new to the 3MT, the challenge is for graduate students to describe their scholarly work in ways that are understandable and compelling. Delivering a 3MT forces students to step out of their disciplinary comfort zones. They should avoid the jargon they're so used to using among peers in their disciplines. They must frame their presentation by putting themselves in the place of the other, the intelligent person who is not an expert in their topic. The first 3MT competition was held at the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008. It was a great success, and other universities followed suit. 10 years later, more than 600 universities in 65 countries around the world hold these types of events. The idea of a 3MT competition came about at a time when the state of Queensland was suffering a severe drought. To conserve water, Queensland residents were encouraged to time their showers, and many people had a 3-minute egg timer affixed to the wall of their bathroom. The then Dean of the Graduate College at UQ, Alan Lawson, put 2 and 2 together during a shower, and the idea for the 3MT competition was born. This final round this evening comprises 8 speakers. Each of these graduate students was judged to have given the best 3MT presentation during preliminary heats last month here on campus. In addition, there may be students in the audience tonight who participated in the preliminary rounds. Are there any who were? A few hands. Raise your hands if you were. Great. Well, let's give you a round of applause. Because I know from attending some of the preliminary heats that not only did these 8 finalists do a great job, but really everybody that I saw did. So thank you for participating. We will adhere to the protocols established by the University of Queensland. Each speaker will be restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes and the use of 1 static slide. No props are allowed, and speech may not include poetry or singing. No questions, this is important, no questions from the audience are allowed. And we ask that the audience refrain from applause until all speakers have finished. The 8 speakers will present in the order they are listed on the program. I will stand at the end of each presentation and will remain standing for maybe 30 to 60 seconds to allow our judges to complete their notes. When I sit back down, the next student can come to the front for his or her presentation. The time clock that the students will be able to use will start when the presenter begins to speak. I mentioned our judges, and I'd like to briefly introduce them. Mr. Milt Dakovich, a member of the Board of Regents State of Iowa, is president of ASPRO. A graduate of Iowa State University, Milt has spent his career in the construction industry. He is a past president of both the Associated General Contractors of Iowa and the Asphalt Paving Association of Iowa, and he is a life director of the Associated General Contractors of America. Andy Dominick has been an editorial writer at the Des Moines Register for 17 years. She was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in 2014 and is the recipient of the Casey Medal for Meritorious Journalism. In 2018, she was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in editorial writing for editorials on the damaging consequences of Medicaid privatization on Iowans. She is also the author of Needles, a memoir of growing up with diabetes published by Simon & Schuster. She earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Iowa State, where she taught in the Department of English before taking a job with the Register. And I don't know that I mentioned it, but Milt is a graduate of Iowa State as well. Becky Staldeman served as Global HR Partner for the IT, Finance, Procurement, and Sales and Marketing departments of Danfoss, a privately owned Danish company with a global reach. Becky supported global management across North America, Europe, and Asia. She's a member of the Board of Governors of the Iowa State University Foundation and a graduate of Iowa State. Let's offer the judges a round of applause. We really appreciate their time and their insight, and I have a feeling they're going to have a difficult time deliberating about the awards that we have to give tonight. Speaking of those, there will be a winner and a second place speaker. The winner will receive $500 scholarship plus a trip to St. Louis, Missouri in March of the coming year to represent Iowa State at a regional 3MT competition. The second place finisher and the People's Choice finisher will each receive $250 scholarships. Every member of the audience, here on campus and remotely, is encouraged to help determine the People's Choice Award winner by casting a vote at the Iowa State 3MT website. The People's Choice winner will be the student not selected for either of the other two awards who receives the most votes. I also want to acknowledge 4 hardworking and dedicated staff members from Iowa State who served on the committee that planned this event. They are Denise Varoka, Judy Strand, Katie Blair, and Sarah Huffman. And for those of you who interacted with them, especially the students, I think you know how much work they've put in over the last year. So we're about to begin with the presentations, but before we do, let me make a couple of requests of the audience. First of all, please don't leave the room until all 8 presentations are over, unless it's an absolute necessity. And more importantly, perhaps, make sure your cell phones are either turned off or in silent mode. So as I mentioned, we will follow the order listed on the program. And to the presenters, when your title slide appears, you can come to the front of the room, the first presenter, and you may begin speaking when your presentation slide appears. So for the audience, I'd like to just give a brief introduction of the 8 finalists. Both master's and doctoral students competed in the preliminary round, but all of our finalists are doctoral students. And by the way, they're all great students. The average grade point average across the 8 is 3.8 out of 4. Carmen Reynolds is majoring in nutritional science. Her major professors are Dr. Beitz and Goff. Carmen studies the fate of vitamin D in the intestines of mice with the goal of finding a model for humans. Andy Downs is an electrical engineering major whose major professor is Dr. Song. Andy joined his PhD program at Iowa State after working for several years in industry and then finding a call to teach. Jeffrey Rockham is studying psychology and human-computer interaction. Dr. Gentile, who's in the audience, is his major professor. Jeffrey will be presenting research from his doctoral dissertation, which is on the link between anxiety and multitasking. Yua A is an electrical engineering major, and she is being advised by Dr. Dong and Dr. Jalen. One of the reasons she chose Iowa State for graduate school is that the first computer was invented here. Kelsey Fisher is majoring in entomology. Her major professor is Dr. Bradbury. Kelsey has worked with Ryman Gardens in Ames on communicating important research to the public. Rainey Nelson is a chemical engineering major and is advised by Dr. Panthani. Rainey did her undergraduate degree at the University of Washington, so she loves our weather today here in Ames. And she's now been studying in Ames for 5 years. Graham Redwick is studying microbiology under the guidance of his major professor, Dr. Malata. Graham views the 3MT competition as a great opportunity to communicate how a problem can impact the general public and how that problem can be solved. And lastly, but not least, Manreet Singh Bular, a student in food science and human nutrition, is advised by Dr. Shaw. After graduation, Manreet plans to find a faculty position and continue his research on food safety. So, I think we're ready to start.
Vitamin D. It's the sunshine vitamin. And calcium, well, that's for building strong bones. Now, it just so happens that vitamin D is a major factor in regulating calcium absorption from the diet. So much so that low vitamin D can cause calcium deficiency. In children, this leads to a disease called rickets, where bones become soft, bendable, and it can stunt the child's growth. In adults, this is osteoporosis, where bones become porous, brittle, and are prone to breaks and fractures. Now, my research has been focused on how vitamin D regulates calcium absorption. Textbooks describe the action of vitamin D as I have shown here on my slide. So vitamin D, coming from the diet or made in the skin by sunlight, it goes to the liver to be metabolized into 25-hydroxy vitamin D, or simply 25D. This 25D is then released back into the blood for the kidneys to take up. In the kidneys, 25D is activated into the hormone, the vitamin D hormone. And it is thought that this hormone then goes to the duodenum of the intestine and stimulates calcium absorption. But my research suggests a different mechanism. Now, in the liver, 25D is not only made there, but it's also modified by attaching a sugar unit to that metabolite. This metabolite is then released into the intestine and it travels all the way down to the colon. There, gut bacteria remove the sugar, leaving 25D in its original form. This 25D then stimulates the colon to absorb more calcium. And it does so just like the hormone, but without ever being one. Now, that's not the only time that 25D acts like a hormone. Animal-based foods, including eggs, meat, and milk, contain small amounts of 25D. And this small amount is just enough to stimulate calcium absorption in the duodenum. To summarize, I've described 2 new ways that a vitamin D metabolite stimulates calcium absorption. This may someday rewrite textbooks and may influence how doctors treat disease.
All right. My name is Andy Downs, and today I want to talk to you about preventing catastrophes, an advancement in the science of ultrasonic non-destructive evaluation. But before I do that, I want to invite you into a story. The story of Aloha Airlines Flight 243. Imagine for a moment that you've just finished a brief stay on the island of Hilo in Hawaii and are boarding the aircraft to return back to Honolulu. As you board, you're greeted by the flight attendant, Miss Clarabelle Lansing, and there's something familiar about her. Anyway, as the airplane takes off and reaches cruising altitude, Clarabelle comes by and asks if you need anything. You politely decline and begin to nod off. But suddenly there's a great roar and you look up to see blue sky where the roof of the aircraft had once been, and Clarabelle is gone. Terrified, you lose consciousness. You wake up moments later in a field, and off in the distance you see what remains of your aircraft. 18 feet of that roof are missing, but all you can think about is Clarabelle. The official report stated that the cause of this mishap was cracks in the line of rivets that held the plates of the aircraft's skin together. What can be done? How do we prevent tragedies like this from happening? Non-destructive evaluation is one part of the overall solution. Simply said, non-destructive evaluation allows us to assess a material's condition without the need to take anything apart. Just like how a doctor might assess our condition using X-ray and ultrasound without the need for surgery. How does it work? Well, for a bulk material, so like a large chunk of aluminum, it's pretty easy. We send an initial pulse of ultrasound down to the crack and back again. Based off the time between the initial pulse and the received signal, we can get an idea of the location or depth of that defect in the material. Based off the size of the received signal, we can get an idea of the size of defect. Aircraft skin is different. It's a plate. And as such, the energy bounces back and forth between the top and bottom surfaces of that plate, causing a special type of interference known as dispersion. This dispersion makes it almost impossible to determine the defect size or its location. My research seeks to eliminate this. Our group is developing a novel technique by which we can compensate for dispersion, making the plate wave signal look just like that of the bulk wave, thus allowing us to determine the defect size and its location. It is hoped that by developing this technology, we can make inspections like those used on Flight 243 easier and more efficient, and one day bring tragedies like this to an end. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Rockham, and I'm here to talk to you about the relationship between multitasking and anxiety. Now, a third of all people within their adult lives in the US will have anxiety levels high enough to actually be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder of some kind. Now, I don't need to tell you about the effects that anxiety can have on you. It can ruin your personal relationships. It can make you even afraid to go outside. But as we can see from here, I'm looking at the relationship between anxiety and GPA. When you're more anxious in classes, your GPA goes down, which is an expected relationship. But I'm also looking at multitasking. Now, multitasking is when you attempt to do two things at the same time, or when you switch back and forth quickly between two things. Now, there's a belief that when you multitask, you're more efficient. In fact, a lot of job applications out there require you to be able to multitask. However, if multitasking was actually good, why has it been estimated that multitasking alone is the cause of a 40% productivity loss in many major companies? Additionally, multitasking has been linked to lower quality of friendships, lower GPA, along with a whole host of other things. But now, the relationship between multitasking and GPA and anxiety and GPA has been studied extensively. So that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about how multitasking and anxiety relate to each other. Now, you've probably experienced where you're looking at your phone trying to see if anything else is going on around you, but you're doing that while you're at work. So that means that you're already split focus and split attention between what you should be doing and what you actually want to be doing. However, that fear of missing out, that anxiety you get from things that you could be doing instead, drives you to look at your phone some more. And then, because you're looking at your phone some more, you feel anxious about things that you should be doing instead. This cycle of a down spiral constantly reinforcing itself of multitasking leading to anxiety is something that hasn't been studied. It's been theorized to exist. There's one person who posited that multitasking can lead to anxiety, but nothing else has been done in that topic. So my dissertation is going to look at that directly, see if by forcing multitasking we can make people feel more anxious, and if people who are more anxious actually multitask more. Hopefully, we can actually make people more productive without having to spend more time and more money doing so. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Firstly, I want to show you a news. Back in just 2 months ago from today, a bridge collapsed in an Italian city called Georgina. In the accident, cars and trucks were trapped in the rubbles, the nearby buildings got damaged, and nearly 30 families lost their beloved forever. I saw one of the comments below the news thesis. If the bridge to be given the regular maintenance, this collapse will be stopped. This accident actually brings us attention and my research motivation. As an engineer, if we can collect the data and further predict when to provide those maintenance, we're actually protecting people. So the next question is, how can we do that? The most typical method we do today is we embedded the sensors inside of concrete and monitor the small changes on the concrete in real time. So firstly, we found some conventional small strain sensor at market. Unfortunately, we later recognized that those sensors are not what we want because they are very difficult to survive during the concrete curing process. The road vibrator breaks the interconnection between the sensors and outside wires. So we lost the signal. Due to above limitation, I finally want to proudly introduce the all flexible small strain sensor that we implemented. It is the first time that people using the all flexible material inside of concrete and further increase the survival rate of the sensor. There are 3 major components makes our sensor different with others. They are graphene, liquid metal, and PDMS. This special designed graphene sensing element makes our sensor can produce a large signal, even just a small force applied on it. And the liquid metal acts as an interconnection between the sensing element and outside wires. And also due to its liquid nature, no matter how we bend or twist in the sensor always alive. We can get signal. And also, the softer polymer PDMS protects the entire sensor without sacrificing the sensitivity. In the end, we provide the strain response from our sensor to the load on the concrete cylinder. We believe, as the sensor can survive longer inside of concrete and can be more sensitive to detect a small change on the structure, we will be able to provide the maintenance alert earlier and more accurate. It saves money and saves life. Thank you.
I remember sitting in my elementary school classroom, crowded around a table with my classmates. We were watching something miraculous, a monarch butterfly coming out of her chrysalis. We could barely wait to release her, hoping that she'd make it to Mexico to spend the winter with her friends and relatives. Monarch butterflies spend the summers widely distributed across the United States and Canada, and the winters clustered together in fir trees in central Mexico. Since the 1990s, conservationists have been measuring the amount of area that the monarchs inhabit in Mexico and using this number as a proxy for population size. It's from this data set that it's been determined that the monarch butterfly population is declining and the annual migration is at risk of extinction. In the spring and summer, monarch butterflies rely exclusively on milkweed to lay their eggs and for caterpillars to feed. Without milkweed, there are no monarch butterflies. In correlation with the decline we've been seeing in Mexico, we've also been seeing a decline in the milkweed abundance in the Midwest because of land conversion and agriculture practices. And additionally, the milkweed that is still out in the landscape is really far away from each other. To combat population decline, statewide conservation strategies are underway, and the focus of these strategies is milkweed establishment in the Midwest. It's estimated that an additional 1.6 billion stems of milkweed need to be established in order to support a population that's not in decline and not in risk of extinction. For effective conservation, these milkweed stems need to be placed in strategic, biologically relevant locations. And to do that, we must better understand monarch biology. Monarchs are highly mobile creatures that traverse the landscape and lay eggs along the way. But since the milkweed's so far away, they spend so much time just wandering trying to find a milkweed stem. So the focus of my research is to try and better understand monarch butterfly search behavior so that we can put milkweed back into the landscape where monarchs can easily find it. And to do this, I'm tracking monarch butterflies with radiotelemetry. You may be familiar with this technology because it's used all the time on deer and wolves. I attach a transmitter to the underside of the monarch's abdomen, as you see in the last picture on my slide, and I release her into nature. The equipment allows me to get an estimated location every 24 seconds. And then I play connect the dots, and I create a flight path like the yellow line you see here. Characteristics of flight paths like this help me understand how far monarchs can see and smell milkweed. And if we establish milkweed in locations that are within the perceptual range of monarch butterflies, they'll have a much easier time finding it, which will result in more eggs laid. Thank you.
Losing your electricity, your belongings, your home can leave you feeling powerless. In the aftermath of disasters like hurricanes, hundreds of thousands of people can be left without power. For some of us, a lack of electricity is inconvenient. For others, like those that rely on medical equipment, access to electricity is a matter of life and death. The problem isn't just related to short-term or solely in the event of a disaster. The International Energy Agency and United Nations estimate that 1 billion people have no access to electricity, and another 1 billion have unreliable access to electricity. That's 2 billion people that can't turn on the lights, that can't have access to a powered dialysis machine, that have to fill their homes with deadly pollution because they can't turn on an oven to cook. The World Health Organization estimates that 4,000 people die every day because of indoor air pollution related to cooking. Over half of those are children under the age of 5. A lack of electricity is not just an inconvenience. It is a serious problem. My research is searching for a solution that brings power to the powerless by developing new materials for low-cost, non-toxic flexible solar cells. Solar cells are local sources of electricity that can be powered even during a cloudy day. But lowering the cost of solar cells is crucial to their widespread use. So one new material that my lab is working on is the halide perovskite. Halide perovskites are structured compounds that often contain lead. And these materials can be processed in a way that is much cheaper than traditional solar cells. And in addition, they have great light absorption properties, which would allow them to be produced on flexible objects. But lead halide perovskites are unstable and toxic. So my research is combining unique synthetic techniques to make a new perovskite material. To eliminate lead, I use a similar but non-toxic element, bismuth. To enhance stability, I sandwich the perovskite layers between protective blankets of organic species. And then finally, to make my material more flexible, I use sound waves to break down the large bulk perovskite into tiny nanocrystals. With a research outcome of stable, lead-free perovskites, I hope to demonstrate the power of perovskites in solar energy by producing solar cells that are inexpensive, non-toxic, and flexible from perovskite materials. I want to shine a light for the 2 billion people that have to live with darkness. I want to provide safe, clean sources of electricity for cooking or for after a disaster. And I want to make sure that in the future, nobody has to die because they are powerless.
On the internet have consumed a poultry or food product containing poultry, meat, eggs, or meat within the past week. Past few days. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the average American consumed approximately 110 pounds of poultry meat and roughly 280 eggs last year. Now, both of these stats are all-time highs and are expected to increase in the future, thus, by extension, increasing our demand for poultry animals, such as chickens. However, due to the emergence of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which are major hazard to human health, we have limited many of the antibiotics that we actually use in agriculture, which has resulted in a spike in bacterial infections and colonization in chickens. These bacteria, like E. coli and Salmonella, are especially problematic because they can either cause disease directly in the chicken or through the consumption of contaminated poultry products cause disease in us. According to the CDC, of 48 million people to get foodborne sickness annually, the majority of deaths in these cases are directly attributed to the consumption of contaminated poultry products. Now, one solution to this problem could just be to completely eliminate poultry from our diets, quitting, as some might say, cold turkey. Instead, for my thesis, we are working on an alternative solution in which we seek to use two immunogens, which are, simply put, substances that induce an immune response to broadly protect chickens against bacterial pathogens. This strategy employs the use of probiotics, which are live microbes that confer a health benefit, as well as a live salmonella vaccine, which is simply put, a leading salmonella organism. When studying the effects of this combination against an E. coli that causes sepsis in chickens and is responsible for millions of dollars of economic losses in the poultry industry, we found that this combination successfully protects chickens against this E. coli by increasing resistance in the blood. Given that both of these immunogens are given orally, we were curious as to whether we could see similar immune benefits in the gut, specifically looking in the context of salmonella, which is disproportionately linked to poultry products. And what we found was fascinating and really quite counterintuitive to what we expected, in that in the gut of chickens, given this combination, salmonella was able to grow 1,000 times more than in chickens that didn't have this combination. Furthermore, we found that this increased susceptibility to salmonella colonization was associated with an increased production in the gut of L-dopa, which is a precursor for the neurochemical dopamine. And aside from its activities in the nervous system, dopamine is extremely important in regulating the activities of a type of immune
challenge to actively suppress other immune cells that would normally kill bacteria, like salmonella. Which leads us to an interesting finding in that you are seeing a dichotomy in the immune response where you see increased immunity in the blood but decreased immunity in the gut. And so currently our research is underway to try to figure out how L-DOPA is being affected by probiotics in the live vaccine, as well as how this all plays a role in persistence. And we hope that with these findings we can further optimize this combination to protect our food supply for generations to come.
How many of you buy fresh produce at the grocery stores? Or has anyone dropped a produce while packing it in a bag? I believe everyone in this room has done this before. According to Center for Disease Control, 1 in 6 Americans get sick with foodborne illnesses each year, and 46% of these illnesses are caused by fruits and nuts. Although there are preventive measures in place to protect people from getting sick, still there are some gaps in the food supply chain. So what is the connection between foodborne illness and dropped produce? What should we do with the dropped produce? The event of dropping occurs more often than you may notice. It was during one of our own research trials in the grocery stores that we noticed people dropping the produce frequently, and nobody picks it up even after hours. So how does it impact food safety? This was our research question to determine the potential of contamination of dropped produce and to test the mystery behind the 5-second rule. In food science myths, 5-second rule says that if a dropped produce is picked up within 5 seconds, it is safe to consume. However, the floors in the grocery store carry a large number of microorganisms, and to no surprise, there's a good possibility of having human pathogens too, such as Listeria monocytogenes, which is a common foodborne pathogen found in the grocery stores. To estimate the probability of contamination, we dropped 3 different kinds of produce: apple, peach, and lettuce, as they have different surface properties. Apple has wax, peach has fuzzy surface, and lettuce leaves got the moisture. We selected 2 commonly used flooring types in the grocery store: carpet and tile. These surfaces were artificially contaminated with bacteria, and produce was dropped onto them for 5 different time treatments, beginning from 5 seconds till 4 hours. The results reported that carpet had the higher uptake, as the fibers hold the bacteria and help survive the bacteria for a longer time, as compared to tile, which is easy to mop and clean. Among produce types, lettuce had the higher uptake, as the high moisture content on the leaves help attach more bacterial cells as compared to dry surfaces of apple and peach. Also, there was no significant difference observed among all time treatment tested. Overall, the study concluded that bacteria can instantaneously contaminate the food when it comes in contact with a dirty surface, and thus ruling out the non-scientific concept of a 5-second rule. Poor handling and ignorance to safety of fresh produce in the grocery store demand better preventive measures, such as educating and training food handlers, which also include all of us in this room as consumers of fresh produce, to ultimately enhance food safety and public health. So let me ask you a question. What should you do with the dropped produce in the grocery store? Eat it. Please leave it on the ground. Thank you.
Well, let's give all 8 presenters a hearty round of applause. Fantastic job, everyone. Now you can relax. And the judges will be leaving the room for a brief period to confer and then report back to us in approximately 20 minutes. plus or minus a little bit of time. And during that 20 minutes, those of us who are up here eagerly awaiting their decisions can enjoy some refreshments out in the hallway. And also cast your vote by either going directly to the links shown here, or if you're having trouble getting something to work, it should work to go to the Graduate College 3MT website and link from there. If you're having any tough technical difficulties, let us know. We should be able to fix it at a moment's notice. So thank you for being here, and I hope you can all stay and witness the outcome and enjoy some snacks in the meantime. So, thank you. All right, well, thank you for staying. We have some results, thanks to our hardworking and thoughtful judges. So first, I'd like to call 5 students who were not selected for the awards to come to the front of the room, because we do have $25 gift cards to the university bookstore for those of you. Actually, you're all winners because you all won in your preliminary rounds. So that's noteworthy on your CVs and resumes in and of itself. Thank you all. You all did a great job. So the 5 people who should come to the front at this time are Carmen Reynolds, Jeffrey Rockham, Kelsey Fisher. Am I getting this messed up? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, okay. UAE and Graham Redwick. Okay, so there is your card. Thank you. And let's give these 5 a round of applause. We also have certificates. All right. So next I'd like to announce the People's Choice Award. And we tabulated in real time. We had 140 votes cast. So a lot of people voted who are watching from a remote location, and we appreciate that. And the People's Choice Award winner is Manreet Singh Bular. And you will be receiving a $250 scholarship to your account. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That leaves Rainey Nelson and Andrew Downs. And our second place winner is Andrew Downs. Our first place winner is Rainey Nelson. So please come to the front.
Thank you.
Congratulations, fantastic job, both of you. Thank you. Yep. And each of these students will be receiving a scholarship in their university account as well. And we're looking forward to your representing the Graduate College in the regional competition. Great job. Yeah. So I also wanted to acknowledge a couple of other Graduate College staff people who helped out a great deal. Sarah Igram here in the front did a lot of publicity about this event and created videos about each of the 8 finalists that you can see online. And Jack Polifka, our IT specialist, helped a lot with setting up our system for casting the votes for the People's Choice Award. So thank you both as well. That concludes the evening. We appreciate everybody participating. See you next year.